いい天気だね。暑くもないし寒くもないし。
I don't have a timeline. It's cash from the sale of a property, and I don't have a timeline.
Okay. So talk to me just about the rest of your financial life. Let's start with, are you planning to buy another piece of property in the next 5 years?
No, I'm retired. My income is covering my expenses,
Okay.
and I guess my best explanation is this is just funny money.
Okay. All right. Not a bad place to be when you got a $400,000 funny money account sitting there. Did this come from an investment property where you're going to have to pay some capital gains, Donald?
No, home place.
Okay, got it. So you're not looking to redeploy it. Your income is covered, and you're retired. Do you have any emergency savings that you had already put aside separate from this $400,000, or would that be included?
No, we have separate.
Okay, great. And do you have so you have other retirement assets that you're pulling from every month?
Yes.
All right.
I have a retirement income from my workplace.
Yeah.
My wife has a retirement income. My house is paid for.
Okay, great. Yeah, I love all of that. I'm sorry, say that again?
I'm looking to get rich off of this funny money.
Yeah. Well, so here's what I would say. I mean, you may be looking for some specific recommendations. I'm not able to do that. But here's what I would say. I mean, I think this is a great opportunity for you to step back, which we all need to be doing, myself included, along the way and in our journey with the Lord, and ask the question, how much is enough? Right? And so we look at what are our needs, we do prudent planning, we think about what is a wise amount to save for the future, given the uncertainties. We want to be able to cover long-term care expenses, which could run for nursing care today, not counting inflation in the future, $9,000 or $10,000 a month, which is probably your biggest risk in this season of life, especially if you don't have long-term care insurance and you're beyond 65, where it begins to get pretty expensive to get it. You'd want to plan for what's an appropriate amount to have set aside beyond, what we're counting on to generate the income for our lifestyle and expenses in retirement. So you'd want to do some prudent planning. You'd also want to say, Lord, what would you have me to do in the way of giving and generosity? But I don't think there's anything wrong with you investing it and putting it to work. I would generally recommend a steady plodding approach, which is just kind of a sure and steady approach over time. Now, if you want to take a portion of it and get a little more speculative, you could. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you know that's what you're doing and you've got the money to do it, I would just get an advisor to help you navigate that in terms of dividing it up and then making the actual investment selections. Stay on the line. We'll talk a bit more off the air.
The Middle East, that's one part of the world we need to pay attention to, especially the country of Israel. Each week, I'll help you make sense of what's happening in that region through a biblical lens. I'll bring you important information about security threats, archaeological discoveries, biblical prophecy, ministries happening on the ground, and much more. I'm John Riley. Join me for the Middle East Report Special Edition every Saturday at 6:30 p.m. Central on American Family Radio as I connect you to the people, places, and geography of what we read in God's Word.
From school buses to homework, September is a busy time. And too often we get busy and forget to pray for the kids in our lives. Hi, I'm Charles Morris with Haven Today. Join me all week with author and mom Melissa Kruger as she provides helpful ways to pray on a series called Back to School, Back to Prayer. Haven Today, weekday mornings at 4:30 Central on American Family Radio. Listen online at afr.net.
What's most important to you when it comes to choosing your financial advisor? Someone who's aligned with your biblical values? How about someone who will take the time to explain your options? Certified Kingdom Advisors are professionals who meet high standards in competence and integrity and have been trained to offer biblical financial advice. To find a Certified Kingdom Advisor in your area, visit faithfi.com and click Find a CKA.
We are grateful for support from Eventide Investments on the Faith and Finance program. Eventide's approach to values-based investing is grounded in the belief that humankind was created in the image of God, with intrinsic dignity, value, and worth. Eventide calls this investing that makes the world rejoice. More information is available at eventideinvestments.com. That's eventideinvestments.com.
Thanks for joining us today on Faith and Finance here on American Family Radio. Donald and I had a chance to connect off the air, and he was talking about this funny money he wanted to get rich on. I think he was saying that a little tongue-in-cheek. We talked about his desire to maximize the interest income off of that through CDs, which I like that a lot in this environment. You can get 5.5% plus if you stay on the short end of the durations, less than 18 months. Interestingly, the further out you get beyond that, you're actually going to see a reduction in the interest rate, just because we know we're in a high interest rate environment right now, and that's not likely to continue beyond the next couple of years. Now, what I had also shared with him is, again, once he considers how much is enough, once he looks at opportunities to be generous and align, giving this away with his passions and the heart of God that we see in Scripture, if he wants to take maybe 10% of it and say, I want to be more speculative with this portion, realizing I could do well with it, or I could lose a good bit of it. I don't have a problem with that as long as it's a reasonable amount in light of your overall investment portfolio. I just wouldn't put your serious money in that. I don't think that's the model we see for investing in Scripture. The most, I think, accurate description or prudent description of our investing strategy that comes from God's Word is around this idea of steady plotting, and that is, growing consistently over a long time period at a reasonable rate of return, not taking an inordinate amount of risk, so we can ultimately not get too emotionally attached to this. It doesn't affect us in other ways, placing unnecessary pressure or stress on us. And I just think as we're caretakers of God's money, we don't want to be foolish with it, which leads me to a topic I want to share with you, and that is around this idea of getting rich quick, that I think a lot of folks feel that temptation to make shortcuts to riches. I mean, it's a powerful pull. We see it in the news. I mean, it can look like crime, shoplifting, drug dealing, identity theft, pyramid schemes, because pride and greed never really go away. These programs that we also see, on TV from time to time, like multi-level sales and house flipping or day trading. Nothing wrong with those if you're doing them right in a thoughtful way and you have the training to do it. But it does pull a lot of people in who don't have that expertise, and they're asking them to pay a fee or attend a seminar or order a brochure, and they make you think that you can earn lots of money without too much time or effort. People doing house flipping or day trading right know that it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and training. So let me address this. By the way, I will have room for maybe one or two more questions today. If you have a financial question you'd like to tackle today, I'd love to tackle it with you. 800-525-7000 is the number to call. You can call right now. Now, talking about get rich quick, according to author Jim Neuheiser, the best financial plans follow, of course, God's principles. He says, Jim does in his book, God has revealed his way of building wealth. And here's what I was talking about before. Jim says it's gradually through hard work and skill. You see, pride leads us to think we can circumvent the Lord's wisdom, but the Bible confirms this in Proverbs 28, verses 19 and 20. Whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits will have plenty of poverty. A faithful man will abound with blessings, but whoever hastens to be rich will not go unpunished. Now, It's good to recognize and avoid get-rich-quick programs, but that doesn't solve the problem of wanting to get rich quickly. Here are 3 dangers I want to point out, and then we're going to head back to the phones as we round out the broadcast today. Here's 3 dangers of get-rich-quick mentality. Think about these. First, getting involved with things you don't understand. Proverbs 24 verses 3 and 4 reminds us that by wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it's established, and by knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. The second danger in get rich quick is the temptation to risk money you don't have or can't afford to lose. That's Proverbs 27:2. The prudent man sees evil and hides himself, and the naive proceed and pay the penalty. You see, what I was talking about with this previous caller is, again, he had the assets to be able to say, okay, I'm going to take a reasonable amount if he wanted to, and I threw out the number of 5 to 10%, and I'm going to be more speculative with those investments because I can't afford to lose it. But I think we always need to weigh that against what is my responsibility as a steward of God's money, which is an even higher calling than just being a prudent money manager. The third problem with trying to get rich without hard work or skill is that it usually involves making impulsive decisions. Proverbs 28:22 reminds us that a man with an evil eye hastens after wealth and does not know that want will come upon him. So I would say, just in conclusion here, even if you're in financial trouble, trusting in a get-rich-quick program to pull you out is a recipe for disaster. But there is hope, and let me finish with going back to Jim Neuheiser's book. Here's what he writes, quote, "In the end, those who reject God's wisdom will suffer the consequences, but we can be confident that as we trust Him and seek to walk in His ways, our needs will be met." I hope that's an encouragement to you today. All right, let's round out the broadcast today by heading back to the phones to Louisiana. Randy, thank you for calling. Go right ahead.
Yes, sir. We have 5 grandkids, and we've opened up these college savings accounts for them. I think we call them 529 accounts.
Yes.
Yeah. And the question is, we have IRAs that are traditional IRAs. We have also the question is, can I take money from a traditional IRA and take it, shoot it straight to a college fund without paying taxes?
No, unfortunately you can't. There is no way to directly transfer IRA funds to a 529 college savings plan. So you would need to withdraw those funds, which would be taxable and could result in a penalty if you're under 59 and a half, and then turn around and make that contribution. Now, once you put money into that 529 plan with after-tax money, because that's what it is. 529 involves after-tax contributions, whereas the IRA is using pre-tax money, the traditional. You do have the option of converting that to a Roth IRA with some requirements if the money goes unused, and that's a new thing that's coming based on a recent change in the law. But to your original question, Randy, can't go directly from that traditional to the 529.
Okay, but you can if you have to start taking the required distribution. You can do that straight to a non-profit organization, right, without paying taxes.
Absolutely, and you can actually do that, Randy, prior to having a required minimum, which now, is up at age 73. Once you reach 70 and a half, even before that RMD kicks in, you can use something called a qualified charitable distribution, which allows you to go straight from that IRA, that traditional IRA, to 501c3 nonprofit ministry or charity or your church. You would just need to call your custodian, whoever houses that traditional IRA, let them know that you want to do a qualified charitable distribution. They'll tell you how to initiate that, alert the charity or ministry that it's coming so they know that they're going to receive it. And then the beautiful part is that comes out of there without adding anything to your adjusted gross income. They get the full amount, and yes, you could satisfy an RMD if you have it. Or another strategy that folks will use is, they may have been giving to their church or a ministry out of after-tax dollars, maybe sitting in a checking or savings account, and instead they replace that with the money coming out of the IRA. So they're given the same amount, they're just using it as a way to get the money out of the IRA without paying any tax. Does that make sense?
That's exactly what I was thinking. So thank you very much for the information.
All right, Randy. God bless you, my friend. Thanks for being on the program today. Let's head to Virginia. Hi, Kathy. Go ahead.
Hi. I have a friend, and she tried to get me to quote-unquote invest in Bitcoin. She wanted me to invest $300, and the people that I was investing with was going to turn around and give me immediately $3,400. And she would get $350 for every person she quote-unquote flipped.
I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole, Kathy. There's no way anybody can guarantee you a profit like that.
I know this. In fact, I tried to talk her out of it.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, this cannot be good for you. I even asked her what company it was with, and she could not give me a straight answer on that. Her thing was, she said, these people, the money that I would give her, if I gave her $300, they were using it to purchase Bitcoin. And the money that they were giving back to me was money that they were giving to me because somehow or another, these people were supposedly helping people out because of the pandemic, which made no sense at all.
Well, it doesn't make sense because it's not right. This is fraud. This is a scam. It's a scheme. It's probably a Ponzi scheme where they're taking the money from one person and turn around and giving it to the other. There's not really any money behind it. There's no possibility that anything close to any investment, let alone Bitcoin or anything else, could offer those kinds of guarantees. In fact, Bitcoin has been, down over the last couple of years, so it's been incredibly volatile. There are no guaranteed returns. I wouldn't touch this. They're just pulling all the levers, get rich quick, speculative investments, cryptocurrency, which is often, misunderstood, and combining that with quote unquote helping people. She needs to run for the hills, and I think you can serve a really valuable role in just telling her, don't touch this. Kathy, thanks for raising this today and being on the program today. We appreciate it. Hey, on behalf of my team today, Jim Henry, Devin Patrick, and Robert Youngblood, I'm Rob West. This is Faith and Finance on American Family Radio. Thanks for being with us today. Hope you come back and join us tomorrow. We'll see you at the same time right here at American Family Radio. Bye-bye.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
90.5 KTXG Greenville, Dallas.
Association, a ministry with a mission to inform, equip, and activate people like you to strengthen the moral foundations of American culture and to give aid to the church here and abroad in her task of fulfilling the Great Commission. We couldn't do it without your day-to-day support. American Family Association. Find us online at afa.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, almost a view. Escaped Pennsylvania murderer Danilo Cavalcante is in police custody after spending about 2 weeks on the run. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro in Kennett Square confirms Cavalcante was arrested without incident.
Thank God there were no injuries to law enforcement or to the public. We obviously became deeply concerned after the suspect was able to steal a weapon. He was apprehended this morning with no shots fired.
Joe Biden continues to be criticized for deciding to not attend a 9/11 ceremony. Fox News host Emily Campagno says Biden is a disgrace and everything that comes out of his mouth is a lie.
The notion that what came out of this administration in defense of him not being in one of the World Trade Center or Shanksville or Pentagon locations for the first time in 22 years, being that, well, Pearl Harbor, presidents were going to Pearl Harbor 22 years later. The patent offensive nature of that, the heartbreaking concept that a place becomes less important with age, that Americans are in less pain, even though more have died since September 11th from 9/11 related injuries than they did on that day. And this president turns his back on that concept and then wraps it around his own finger for his own personal gain in a lie. It is unacceptable. To your point, everyone should listen to exactly what's coming out of this president's mouth. It is non-empathetic. It is wrong. It is a lie.
During the COVID-19 panic of 2020, California Governor Gavin Newsom locked down churches, businesses, and schools, but allowed the film industry to remain open. NBC's Chuck Todd asked him about that.
You found a way to allow the motion picture industry and the sort of the movie industry to get back to work, but you didn't allow people to grieve together at funerals or at churches.
I think there's a lot of humility, and we didn't know what we didn't know, and it was hardly it was we. Collectively, and I think all of us, in terms of our collective wisdom, we've evolved. We didn't know what we didn't know. We're experts in hindsight. We're all geniuses.
Civil rights attorney and Fox News contributor Leo Terrell says Newsom always deflects and never takes responsibility.
He's a weasel. Let me tell you why Hollywood's open. Because Hollywood gave him millions and millions of dollars in his recall election when he was facing the recall of California. Remember, this guy was at the fridge laundry. Netflix gave him $3 million. Schools were closed. You know why? Because the California Teachers Union is one of the biggest unions in the country. They gave him millions of dollars. If you are a Democratic donor, Gavin Newsom catered to you during the COVID. But our kids suffered.
He says he was fired for attending a leadership conference at a church. Now, a former fire chief is appealing his case to the entire Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Chris Woodward has more.
The appeal from Ron Hittle of Stockton, California comes after a 3-judge panel at the Ninth Circuit ruled in favor of the city. Attorney Kayla Toney of First Liberty, the law firm representing Hittle.
The court held that the city was justified in terminating Chief Hittle because of the negative perception of others from his attendance at the religious conference. And the court also held that the conference could not possibly benefit the city because it had a religious element. And we think that's wrong. We think that violates Title VII and violates Chief Hittle's religious freedom. So we're asking the Ninth Circuit to fix its mistake.
As fire chief, Hittle was encouraged to attend leadership training, so he chose what he thought would be a good event at Willow Creek's Global Leadership Summit. Former speakers include President Bill Clinton and Super Bowl winning coach Tony Dungy.
The focus is really on leadership in the business world. And so some of the speakers talk about faith, some of the speakers talk about their experiences in public service. And the fire chief, testified that he received a lot of benefit from the conference.
First Liberty is hopeful that the appeals court will at least decide quickly whether to rehear the case. If they do not, then First Liberty will seek help from the U.S. Supreme Court. I'm Chris Woodward.
And the Labor Department said the Consumer Price Index rose 3.7% in August from a year ago, up from a 3.2 annual pace in July. For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
Are you able to stand steadfast in this post-Christian world? Join Frank Turek, Gary Habermas, Hugh Ross, Richard Howe, and more than 40 other speakers for Southern Evangelical Seminary's 29th Annual Steadfast National Conference. No matter where you are on your faith journey, you will leave this event better equipped to penetrate the culture with the gospel and defend the truthfulness of Christianity. It all happens October 13th and 14th at First Baptist Church in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Register now at ses.edu/national conference.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. This is Wednesday, September the 13th, 2023. Thank you for listening to AFR. Well, joining me in studio for this here program is Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
And Fred Jackson. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, Tim.
Hey, let me ask Brent Creeley. Brent's our producer. Rarely speaks, but when he does, it's profound.
It is. Brent, Ray Pritchard, you remember him?
Yes, sir.
He used to be on our show for a number of years, and he like disappeared for the summer. I mean, where is he now?
Ray is off preaching, and y'all can talk amongst yourselves. I'm pulling the text message up where me and him was talking.
Just like, do you think is something we said? You think maybe, or why did
he's going to be back next week.
He is?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
He'll be back next week.
But he has been gone for weeks.
Right. Well, we all make life choices.
Yeah.
And he made a choice to go preach the Bible at these camps rather than be on the radio with us.
Go preach the Bible.
So, I mean, what does that say about him? Huh? All right. So I just wanted listeners to know that
Ray was not involved in the prisoner swamp with Iran. Right. He is still in the United States.
We have not forsaken him, nor has he forsaken us.
That's right.
Ray is a Bible teacher, and he used to pastor for many, many years a church. And now he writes books and travels the country speaking at conferences and camps. And so that often, in the summertime, at least the summertime extended to September, that often covers weeks at a time. Right. Weeks at a time. All right, Ed, you want to tell folks how they can watch this show on the internet?
Yes, they can go. There are two options. Two. Only two. You can go to Facebook and search for Today's Issues and click through. You can watch the live video stream of this program, or you can go to AFA's own streaming platform. That's streaming.afa.net. Streaming.afa.net. I'm looking at it right now. I think we're working on getting the video stream for that, but those are your two options. We used to be on YouTube, but they banned us because I mentioned the word ivermectin one too many times. Mm-hmm. And that was it. Into the black hole we went.
We might reapply for that sometime, Brent. Reapply for the YouTube. See if they'll let us back on.
I've got a couple more things I need to do to it, and we should be good to go.
To try
again. Yes, sir.
Okay, we don't need to talk about this publicly. You know what I'm saying? That we're going to try to go back on YouTube. Like, we don't need to tell our listeners or anything like that. We need to keep this between ourselves so that when we reapply, nobody's triggered.
Absolutely. I think we should absolutely keep this
a secret.
A secret.
So, can you do that?
Yes.
Keep it secret.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so we'll try to get back on you. I don't really care because we have our own streaming service.
Right.
But just for fun, just for kicks, I'd like to see whether we can get back on after 2 years of you triggering YouTube by using the word ivermectin, which is a drug that's been around forever.
Yeah.
That people use for various reasons, but
we mentioned it in connection with COVID.
Yes.
And hydroxychloroquine, and that was all it took, apparently.
Although they wouldn't tell us that.
No, they said we violated their community standards.
Right. That's what they want you to guess.
Believe me, I've been on YouTube before, as most of our listeners have. They don't have community standards. I'm not sure what they're talking about.
Okay. You just got us banned again by saying they don't have community standards. All right, Fred Jackson, what's leading the news this morning?
Big story right now this hour is out of Pennsylvania. That escaped convict from Chester County. The search for him has just captured the nation's attention over the last 2 weeks. Been on the loose for 2 weeks. Well, he was captured early this morning. His name is Danilo Cavalcante, 34 years old. He was awaiting transfer to a state prison after being convicted of killing his girlfriend, stabbed her 38 times in front of her children. That's back in 2021. He escaped from this county jail. Maybe some have seen the picture where he basically scaled up the wall, got through some heavy-duty razor wire somehow, and escaped. So he's been on the loose for 2 weeks. Just dozens, perhaps over 100 people looking for him. There was news from the weekend or early Monday morning where he had broken into a house and got a 22 caliber rifle. That made the search even more dangerous, knowing that he was now armed. Well, what happened was around 1 o'clock this morning, authorities using thermal technology surrounded him in the woods not far from the house where he stole that rifle. However, there was a very bad storm that moved into the area, and they had to wait. And so around 8 o'clock this morning, they finally moved in. He tried to escape through some heavy brush, and they actually had search dogs with him, and that search dog was the one that went in and kind of glommed onto him and stopped him. So no shots had to be fired. He had a dog bite or something of that nature, but he's been captured. We have reported that he was in the country illegally. Somehow he managed to get out of Brazil using a cooked-up passport back several months ago. He made it to Puerto Rico and from there entered the country illegally. And that is another part of the whole story in this. But he is in custody this morning, and authorities are praising the search teams. As I say, they use thermal technology. They brought in a special team, a border kind of patrol team that has expertise in this area of looking for these people in brush areas. And fortunately, they were able to catch them this morning without shots being fired. Nobody injured. None of the search teams injured. But this guy, he scared a lot of people while he was on the loose because of his background. By the way, he was wanted in Brazil too for a possible murder down there. People are trying to figure out how he got out of Brazil clutches, how did he get a passport, etc., etc. But he, at one point, there were several schools that were shut down in this area of Chester County, Pennsylvania, because they were worried. This is a dangerous guy. But he's now back in custody. You can imagine that there's going to be reviews of the security of this county jail, but the state police now say he's going to be in state custody, and they're confident, I'll put it that way, that he will not be able to escape again. By the way, another interesting thing, the authorities interviewed his mom, who is still in Brazil. They recorded her voice and played it from helicopters, calling on her son to surrender, to give himself up. So there was a lot of different tactics that were used. He apparently has a sister that's in the country illegally. They approached her. She was not willing to cooperate, and apparently now she is going to be deported.
And this, you mentioned this elite Border Patrol unit for the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. It's there. The unit is called a BORTAC. I'm guessing that means Border Tactical. And it says, article I'm reading says they're skilled in apprehension, played a critical role in the capture of another prison break in New York and a mass shooter in Texas earlier this year. So this guy's name was Danilo Cavalcante, and all I can say is book him, Danilo. This guy shouldn't have even been in the country. And a young lady's dead because he was here. More could have been hurt if he had not been captured. And this is on the Biden administration and Democrats who have thrown the border open to anyone and everyone. And that's what former President Trump used to say, is that coming across that border are criminals and rapists and terrorists. He never said all the people coming across were that, but this is an individual who more than likely was guilty of a murder in Brazil and crossed that open border. So President Trump was right about this. Conservatives on the Republican side of the aisle are right about this. All of those running for president for the GOP nomination this year want to shut down that border. but we can't get any cooperation from the Biden administration, so this one's on you, President Joe.
And we were talking about this in the story meeting earlier this week. There was a story that the Border Patrol has detected at least 120 people crossing our border who are on the terrorist watch list. So that's 120 that they have detected. One has to assume that at that level of individuals coming across our border, there are probably, only the good Lord knows, how many others who were not detected that are now in this country.
And since they're on the terrorist watch list, they're not here to get good deals on sneakers.
No.
These people are here with plans to harm Americans and to disrupt our country.
You know, it has been disturbing to watch Republicans in the House, since they took control of the House, have held a lot of hearings on the crisis on our southern border, and to watch Alejandro Mayorkas, the Homeland Security, just smile when he's challenged about the questions of the now hundreds of thousands who have crossed the border since Joe Biden became president. And he sits there with a smirk on his face.
It's in the millions total.
Yes.
Yeah.
He sits there with a smirk on his face. He's under oath.
Yeah.
And says the border is under control.
Right.
It's under control. Well, I guess you have to have that. What is the definition by the Democrats of under control these days?
Well, let's ask the mayor of New York City
Yeah.
whether he believes his own Democrat Party leadership about and the White House about the illegal immigration being under control. It's not. They don't care. Biden doesn't care, and neither does many in the Democrat Party, unfortunately.
Listen, I think when Mayorkas says the border is under control, I think he means it. But what he defines as under control is it's operating just the way we want it to.
Right. I agree
Wide
with that.
open.
Yes, because they want everybody in the world to be able to come here and apply for asylum.
Right.
And they believe that everybody in the world who comes here needs to be able to allow entry into the interior of the U.S. This is just a basic philosophy that most Democrats have. They don't believe in borders, really.
Right.
Now, Sinema does, the senator from Arizona, the Democrat. If you're an official on the border, by that I mean you're a representative of a border state or governor of a border state, then you give lip service at least to controlling the border. You care more because you have to be responsive to your citizens. I'm talking about in Arizona. But Arizona, they just elected a Democrat governor. So I don't think the people of Arizona really give a rip. I'm not talking about all of them. The majority of Arizonans don't care about their own border.
If they did, it would be top of the list.
Yes.
And they would vote on that basis.
Yes, so I don't see the people of Arizona, a majority of them, really caring too much about this issue, enough to make it a top tier voting issue. That's a mystery, I guess. You would think it would be, but it was not in the last governor's election. All right, you're listening to today's issues. Next story, Fred.
Well, we just reported on this announcement that was made yesterday, I think towards the end of the program yesterday, that House Leader Kevin McCarthy announcing the go-ahead for an impeachment inquiry against President Biden. It's been really interesting. The Democrats yesterday reacting to this, saying it's nothing but a witch hunt, that they have no evidence to warrant an impeachment inquiry. Well, the head of the House Judiciary Committee, Republican Jim Jordan, says in one aspect, in one case alone, that being the Burisma case, Hunter Biden, who sat on the board of Burisma, the Ukrainian energy company, they have enough evidence of it, the involvement of his dad, now President Biden, that it warrants this kind of investigation. Jim Jordan, he was interviewed this morning, cut number one.
There are four key facts, four central facts that are at the heart of this issue. The first is Hunter Biden was put on the Burisma board. Second, he was put on that board with no qualifications. Third, Burisma asked him, can you weigh in with D.C. to relieve the pressure we're under from the prosecution, from the prosecutor here in Ukraine? And fourth, Joe Biden did just that. He leveraged our tax money to get the prosecutor fired.
And there's evidence of that. Remember, after Joe Biden left office, he was at an event. We've played the audio, I think, a couple of times, where he bragged about that he went to the Ukrainian government. He said, you're not getting any more United States aid. He was vice president at the time. You're not getting any United States aid unless you fire that prosecutor that's looking into Burisma. And he bragged saying, hey, by the end of the day, that prosecutor was fired.
I want to know, is there a money trail, though, between, is there a money trail that can be established between Hunter Biden's international business deals and money to his dad to buy a house, pay for living, extravagant living, or what? I don't know. Did Joe Biden make money off Hunter Biden's dealings? Can that be proven?
That has to be the fulcrum of this whole thing. You have to be able to prove that, because I don't think it's probably unusual for politicians at that level, talking about Vice President Biden at the time, to try to flip that political influence to help family members. I don't think that's probably unusual.
Republicans and Democrats do that and have done that.
So the question is, was there a quid pro quo? Was there a this for that?
Yeah.
If we will put Hunter Biden on the Burisma board, if you do this for us, and then we'll pay you in addition. That would be
some things are self-evident, right? I mean, if Hunter Biden had some kind of expertise in energy, maybe you would say, well, that's the reason that this big Ukrainian energy company paid him hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't know how much, millions maybe.
It was $80,000 a month, I think.
Yeah. And so paying him that kind of, well, that guy can go through the money, can he? If he said he's broke. But anyway, I guess when you're a drug addict, and sadly,
and hiring,
you can run through a lot. You can run through a lot of money.
Right.
Anyway, so you can argue that. I mean, so you could have argued, had he had experience, well, that's what they're paying him for. But this was just blatant.
Right.
And I thought it was, and I think it is. It's at least unethical. Violates ethics. Congressional ethics. I'm sorry to use an oxymoron. Is that what that's called?
I think that's probably
congressional ethics.
Yeah. Self-contradictory.
Yes. So, regarding this, they were paying him off for his influence that he could get with his dad to make policy changes or to make things that benefited their company so they could make money, and therefore Hunter Biden was worth paying, even though he had no expertise in the area and probably didn't even speak Ukrainian.
Right.
Okay. Now, all right. I'm just saying Republicans and Democrats have done this kind of thing probably since the dawn of time. Right.
And not just in our country.
Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of former President Trump, struck like some kind of $2 billion deal when he left the White House with the Saudis.
Right.
All right. I'm not suggesting that's.
Maybe he was worth $2 billion.
Now, how do I know that? Well, Kellyanne Conway, the former aide for Trump, she was on Fox News laughing about it.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yep.
Everybody knows Jared made a killing.
Right.
When he left the White House with the Saudis. Now, I don't know if that's illegal or unethical or whatever. I'm just saying that a lot of these government officials and their family members, they do try to make money off of their peddling influence.
Yeah.
And
it's probably very difficult to actually prove. Right. That's why this is a high hurdle for the Republicans in the House. It's probably hard to prove that, for example, Mitch McConnell, isn't his wife, her family has some kind of shipping there's some kind of shipping business in China. Okay, it's very difficult to prove that there is a direct line between being Mitch McConnell and his wife, and is there money coming from? I mean,
right? It's a tangled web.
Yeah,
and it's hard to untangle and prove.
Right,
and that's what it sounds like to me. Is the Bidens are saying prove it?
Yeah,
or Joe Biden, to the extent he knows what's happening, is saying, because that's what he said. What, about 3 or 4 months ago? He said, prove it. Show me where I made money off Hunter's business deals.
Which is the whole point about money laundering, is that you try to make it so it's very difficult to actually prove it.
Right. And remember, he did this 10 years ago. This is 10 years or so ago when he was VP. So he would have been much more with it. Now, so they're going to bring impeachment.
An impeachment inquiry.
Yeah.
So is that where you ask about impeachment?
No, you gather evidence.
It's an inquiry.
So, yes. So they're inquiring. Inquiring minds want to know. So you bring witnesses in, and this is another part of why this is a very difficult process for it to pan out for Republicans. I mean, I think they probably need to do it, but this is not the same as the Justice Department that can drag people in, and force them under oath to answer questions, those kinds of things. This is, you have to get people to cooperate with subpoenas and to come in and testify before Congress. And so it's not the same as being brought in by the FBI and asked questions. So this is not going to be an easy thing, but Republicans claim to, quote unquote, have the receipts, and I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. All right, Fred.
All right, I know we have to go to a break, so very briefly, another story that's brewing out there this morning. Senator Rand Paul, Republican senator from Kentucky, along with a group of other Senate Republicans, have sent a letter to the Central Intelligence Agency regarding an allegation from a whistleblower that the CIA offered to pay off its analysts to change their position on the COVID-19 lab leak theory. Now, as the story goes, the CIA, in the midst of the whole pandemic, set up a team of 6 or 7 agents to investigate as to whether the virus came from the Wuhan lab. According to the report of this whistleblower, they came back and they said, yes, this is what we found out, that the virus came from the Wuhan lab. According to this whistleblower, these agents that were then offered money to change their story. And this is initiated, this letter from Senator Rand Paul and a group of other Senate Republicans. They have written a letter to the CIA. They want all kinds of documentation with regards to this investigation to see if they can prove whether this whistleblower is telling the truth.
And Rand Paul has been a bulldog on the COVID issue.
Yes.
And listen, this is the problem with having huge bureaucracies that don't directly answer to, they're supposed to answer to Congress, but they basically don't. No. They do whatever they want. This is another hard row to hoe for Rand Paul, but that's the problem when you have these huge, bloated, deep state alphabet agencies.
Yes.
I love Rand Paul, though. Senator from Kentucky. As far as his
dad, too.
His fighting spirit. He'll be back. We'll be back momentarily.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. Those are words of Paul. He was a lad in the town of Cremona, Italy, in the middle of the 17th century. Cremona was a musical town, and great acclaim was given to those who could sing or play. Wanting to be accepted and given some recognition for his musical talents, he tried singing. His friends called him Squeaky Voice, and he soon realized that his singing would never be anything special. The young lad then tried to learn to play, but his success wasn't much better than his singing. So he was a dejected youngster as he walked through the streets of Cremona with his friends and listened to their beautiful voices. About the only thing the lad could do was to whittle on a block of wood with his knife. One day he was sitting on the edge of a street whittling as three of his friends played and sang beautiful songs for the people passing by. Appreciating the musical ability of his friends, many people dropped some small coins into their hands to reward them for their efforts. One gentleman stopped longer than many of the others and even asked the friends to sing a song again. After they finished, he dropped a coin into the hand of the singer. Then he moved on down the street. Upon looking, the boys discovered that it was a gold coin. It was quite a piece of money to give to a street singer. But the man who gave it could afford to do so. Who was he? Asked the lad who whittled. It was Amante, his friend with the beautiful voice replied. Amante who? Asked the lad. Niccolo Amante, the friend replied. He's the greatest violin maker in all of Italy. That evening at home, the lad thought about the man by the name of Niccolo Amante. He was a man who succeeded in the musical field, but he neither sang nor played. The more he thought about the violin maker, the more he became convinced that he wanted to become a violin maker. He wanted to become the best violin maker in all of Italy. Well, early the next morning, the lad hurried off to the home of Niccolo Amante. He sat on the doorstep and waited for the great violin maker to come out. When Amante came out, the lad told him that he wanted to become a violin maker and asked Amante if he'd teach him how to make violins. He explained to Amante that he couldn't sing or play, but that he could whittle. And more than anything else, he wanted to make violins. Amante accepted the young lad as a pupil. Day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, the young man studied from the master. In due time, his work became known in Cremona and then Italy and finally throughout the whole world. You know, we may not have the talent to do some things as well as other people, but God has given us all a very special talent, which, if we will develop, can help us help others. Antonio Stradivari found this to be true. Even to this very day, men still make music with his violins, and they pay upwards of $100,000 to do so. Just because you can't sing or play doesn't mean you can't make music.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. Psalm 27:4.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, and Fred here. If you want to send us an email, again, it needs to be a K-Love email, positive and encouraging. Okay? That's the kind of emails we like here, right, Ed?
That's right.
Who wants to open up an email and have somebody just...
I don't even like constructive criticism. I don't care if they're trying to help me. I want my best life now, and that does not include criticism.
High five me on that, yes, brother. Sir. I'm with you. No, I don't want it either. I don't like that either.
Folks, I'm just kidding. I get constructive criticism all the time. As soon as I step in that house after work.
I knew this was coming. I knew this was coming.
You get constructive criticism whether you like it or not.
I talk trash because my wife does not listen to the show. And she doesn't listen not because we're boring, because we're clearly not.
Right.
She just can't take the bad news.
She wants to live in her happy place.
That's absolutely right.
Right. So
I don't want to hear that.
Days of our lives, or what does she do for that?
Oh no. She doesn't watch that either.
I'm just kidding. All right, so joining us right now, a very positive person, Dr. Alex McFarland, who's on with Bert Harper each afternoon on American Family Radio from 3 to 4 Central Time with Exploring the Word, a live on the radio Bible study that many of you listen to each afternoon. Weekdays. Alex, good morning to you, brother.
Good morning, everybody.
Hey, where are you today?
Well, I'm in an airport en route to Washington.
Are you like in a closet?
Are you in a bathroom stall or something? Or?
Yeah, I'm trying to find a quiet place, and so I went into this hallway, but it sounds echoey, doesn't it?
Hey, do you see? Well, yeah, it does. Do you see Tom Hanks around there anywhere?
Tom Hanks.
You see Tom Hanks around there anywhere?
No, not living in the airport, although I probably spent years of my life in airports.
Yeah, you have, because you travel all the time all over the country. Hey, your new book that you and Bert wrote is out. It's called 100 Bible Questions and Answers for Families. We're going to be giving this as a premium in our upcoming Share-a-thon in about a month from now on American Family Radio. We're excited about that, tremendously excited about it. But you and Bert, man, this is your second book, right?
It is our second book, and we're very excited. And Tim and Ed and everybody, I've got to say it is just like the greatest honor of my life that something we would create is going to be the premium in Share-a-thon. And, the funny thing was we did this book, and these are actual questions from actual listeners to Exploring the Word. About 2 years ago, we did 100 Bible questions and answers, and this is 100 more. We were going to call it 100 more Bible questions and answers, but what we did, the focus is really a lot about family and marriage and parenting and what does God's Word say about, morals and imparting the biblical worldview. And so we really do think it'll be a good resource for everybody, but especially for parents, grandparents, and families. And we learned that Sam's Club and Walmart ordered 4,000 copies.